When asked if they wanted to be interviewed for a book about political gossip, a lot of people seemed a bit worried. They anxiously wanted to know what the tone of Haven't You Heard was going to be, what its central thesis would end up looking like, and what view it would take on gossip in politics. Is it a good thing? A bad thing? Somewhere uncomfortably in between? The first 2 points will be answered in due course, but the third one is quite straightforward. This book does not make any judgment on gossip in Westminster. Some of it is unquestionably good. Some of it is unquestionably bad. The vast majority of it operates in shades of grey, and in any case, a study that takes a moral view on its topic is only of limited interest. Besides, right and wrong are largely subjective values, both in politics and the wider world. An action can be repellent to you, but a necessary evil to someone else, and something might be frowned upon in some situations, but welcomed in others. In short, gossip is messy. It is messy because politics is messy, and politics is messy because it is made up of people, and anything with people in it is a mess. Accepting this is a good start-off point. As Maxie's quote sets out, what follows isn't a defence of the political bubble per se, simply an acknowledgement that people who work in SW1 are just that. People. People do stupid things. They get drunk, they're selfish, make mistakes, love each other, hate each other, and let all of the above influence their work in ways it shouldn't. Of course, said work in this case just so happens to dictate what happens to the country at large, which only goes to add another layer of mess to the situation. On top of all this, Westminster is an odd place that makes people take odd decisions, which naturally influences the way they talk and act with one another. Rules are often unclear or unspoken, and so little gets written down or taught through the usual channels that the informal matters to an absurd extent. Thousands of words are written about politics every day, but most of them only ever scratch the surface of why things really happen and how they really work. This can be alienating, and perhaps a reason why so many see politics as dry and dull when it is often anything but. It isn't the fault of reporters. Having to explain exactly why and how every single thing came to happen would make the entire news industry unsustainable. There aren't enough hours in the day for journalists or enough pages in newspapers. Still, like dark matter hiding in the universe, in a form we do not quite understand, this mass of informal conventions, relationships and conversations shapes everything that happens. Take Brexit, for example. As Tim Shipman explains later in this book, much of what has happened in Westminster in the past few years came from friendships, feuds and clashes of personalities. Take them out of the equation and you will find yourself baffled. There is also something revealing about the way in which parliamentarians never quite took the EU's intransigence seriously. It is, after all, a bureaucratic institution that needs everything to be clear, agreed on, and preferably printed and ratified. This realisation seemingly was a culture shock for people here. If British politics can be ruled by nebulous and convenient fudge, then why can't Brexit be too? Similarly, this crisis which has taken over our political discourse is particularly maddening because so little was ever set in stone. There were stories about sources saying that maybe Number 10 would do this, while other sources hinted at the fact that a government department would perhaps not agree to it for reasons that were never clear. MPs you'd never heard of became prominent, seemingly out of nowhere, for what felt like 17 seconds, then disappeared again, but not before unnamed wags let it be known that the MP was a real kingmaker, the true brain behind their faction, a troublemaker with some scores to settle, an idiot put up to it by enemies he thought were his friends, delete as appropriate. Nothing ever happened, yet everything constantly did, and missing a few days of coverage either meant coming back to 12 new protagonists and 7 new plots, or to everything being exactly the same as before. This is partly because the press didn't quite know how to cover Brexit in a way that was accurate, clear, and served their readers, though this isn't what Haven't You Heard is about, so we can set it aside. What is relevant here is the fact that those months of confusing reporting on things that may happen, or maybe won't, and factions being created, disbanded and split in two, more or less at the same time, weren't really special.